fairly cold tonight again. 51 degrees. And of course, anything under 70 is cold to me. Galwith Hogarth and Company, Coniston Cut Plug. I think it's about 75% dark fired Kentucky. It's like some kind of Malawi burley. Don't know what the other one is, but a mixture of burley and Virginia, pretty much 50-50, fill the rest. So it's supposed to be a very strong smoke. And I find that for me, this is a guess. Because the human body is a very complex system, right? I think a lot of times people say, oh, you know, I'm very tolerant to nicotine, I'm very intolerant to nicotine. But on the day-to-day, I'm guessing we have very different levels of tolerance depending on what time of day, obviously how much we've eaten, etc. So maybe I could say something specific like, I probably have on average throughout my days a higher tolerance than other people. But it could actually be the opposite. And for me, it seems to be a mixture of obviously how I'm feeling physically. For me, if I eat, it actually does the opposite, I've noticed. It appears to be the case. It's kind of interesting, like I can smoke on an empty stomach and it's not really much of a problem to me for some reason. But I do notice that with these very high nicotine blends, especially many of these Galwith and Hogarth, I guess you call them like uncut rope style tobaccos that I purchased recently. They do make me salivate usually. I have some Nording pipe filters, those little stones, the Nording keystones on the bottom, about 10 of them. And of course a Savinelli. This is an army mount, so I can pull it off without fear of destroying this pipe. Savinelli balsa wood filter, so it's double filtered. Pretty nice for a briar. I remember asking my local tobacconist like 6 or so months ago, I just asked them, you know, what do you guys think about filters? And I think the two guys who work there in the shop, I think one of them owns, I don't know. But they both told me they just kind of think they're a bit of a waste of money. Like they're probably not as effective as we think they are. I think it's okay to be skeptical about, you know, whether or not they work. I think it is obviously true that they do fill up with at least moisture. It's pretty obvious. And you can probably assume it fills up with other stuff. But whether or not that other stuff is the stuff that you don't want, you know, whether it's free radicals or maybe a lot of free radicals are just part of the good flavor that we like. So it's hard to say. I'm not sure. But these days I smoke mostly, you know, I'll pretty much smoke a 9mm every other day. I'll smoke my newer meerschaums. Obviously your older, more estate meerschaums probably aren't as absorbent. It's my guess, at least. Maybe that's not true. But so in a sense, I'm pretty much always filtering pipes some way or another. And of course with my very tiny cut short GBD prints that I cut into a nose warmer, that one I never use any kind of filter. Obviously can't fit a filter, it's got a very thin stem. And it's got such a shallow bowl. If I put any Denicool crystals in there, the little Denicool filtering crystals, or these keystones, don't think it would do much. There just wouldn't be much room left for tobacco, obviously. So with this pipe, just like with all my other little pipe projects I'm doing recently, I record a lot of them. So basically I just take little tiny cuts of what I'm doing, and right before I do the thing, I'll maybe just have the pipe in hand and shot, and I'll say, hey, so I'm gonna do this thing to my pipe. And I kind of splice them all together using the Instagram. Instagram has their own video editor, And I've worked with different video editors like Premiere Pro, iMovie, back before I wanted to buy Premiere Pro, back when I was doing kind of media work, when I was a content boy, making content for a martial arts group, which was pretty effective. It actually seemed to get a lot of membership in. A lot of people would show up at the door. They'd want to start doing the kendo thing, this martial art. And part of their explanation was they saw this YouTube video of us on a trip or something. But I find the Instagram editor is great. And it's kind of one of those things where with creative endeavors, it's nice to have like a limitation. So those videos, the reels, I think you have a limit of 1 minute 30 seconds. So I have to cut down my videos to 1:30. So that means I can kind of splice everything together. There's always something going on. And I can get the real gist of what I want to talk about in 1 minute 30 seconds. It's kind of neat. If it's like a pipe restoration video, I can just really quickly just show bam, bam, bam clips of me working on different things. I guess it's one of those things where, I obviously like long form content, There's nothing quite like a researcher or an author, writes a book. They have to go in and dig deep. They have to research a whole bunch, figure a whole bunch of stuff out, just create many different renditions of it. But a book, this long form media is still shorter than the total information this person knows, or the total of what would be, it's not like all their different old renditions put together. It's still like a large piece of marble that's been carved down to something smaller. So I find that kind of neat. I can make these tiny little videos. I can feel like I've got my creative energy out. And what I have in the end is something that's like fairly polished, unlike these videos where people just ramble long form for a long time. You can obviously cut these up, and you can cut up these videos into little pieces. But is that worth it, You're dealing with a really large file size. You gotta have like computer setup. That stuff's expensive. I don't really want to do that anymore. It's really easy to just record little clips on my phone and edit them on my phone. So the topic of this next video on Instagram, at least this next reel that I'm going to make, 1 minute 30 seconds, is going to be this pipe. So it kind of looks like a fake Radice, or a fake Siriacapo or something. A Serfocapo, like faux Serfocapo. But I think I've probably smoked this pipe on here before. So it has this black rustication that it came with. It's much more craggly, and I really wish I didn't do anything to it. It's very craggly, very like deep pits, probably that kind of rustication where you have almost that pointy, it's almost like a pointy pneumatic thing that just rusticates it by poking at it really hard. And I really like that finish. And when I cleaned it up, I kind of took down some of the peaks of the rustication. And then after that, I thought, I stained it black, basically, how it's supposed, what it was originally. And I thought, what if I just take down the peaks and I expose the raw briar? That'll make it look great, right? Well, it's kind of wrong, because the raw briar underneath black stained briar is kind of dark. So this rim, originally it was rusticated, a rusticated black rim. And so I just took sandpaper and just, did this. Very simple, obviously. And I took that down to this, because I kind of like having rustication, but at least some defining lines, so people can see it and immediately tell what's going on. It's not some weird blob of just craggy, I don't know what the hell that is. It looks like a burnt turd. But I kind of like having a little bit of sharp line, so it defines the burnt turd a little better. People know what they're looking at. This is a very strange thing to think about, but if I'm out smoking a pipe, I don't want to confuse people too much, because there's this weird thing hanging out of my mouth and they haven't seen before, and it might not look like a classic pipe, like a meerschaum. It's just very strange. It's very otherworldly. Why is it white? I thought pipes were brown. It's maybe too much for people. And in a sense, this is probably hyper-consciousness. Like, I shouldn't be that conscious. Obviously, people don't care that much. But then there's also, you know, you kind of want to be kind to people to some degree. You don't want to freak them out too much. But also, maybe there's a good aspect in kind of freaking out people a little bit. Keep people on their toes. You're entertaining people, you know, maybe as long as you're not harming them, as long as you're not jumping out and yelling fire in a crowded room. As long as the negative externalities aren't too crazy, it's probably okay. But what is and isn't permissible, maybe that's not up for me to decide for other people, who knows. So this pipe, got the rim done today, did the polishing on it, of course, and this pipe here on the sides, the rustication, of course, was exposed briar, which looked pretty bad because it was black with a very dark brown on it. Looked a little weird to me, and I kind of like the simplicity of just black. So I went and restained the whole thing just black. Fortunately, it's a little too smooth for my liking, but it's kind of become a different kind of rustication, which I'm okay with. But it does kind of tell the story of, oh, this person was experimenting with this pipe when they took down the rustication, maybe. At least that's what I see when I look at it. In this mouthpiece today, in the morning, it was much longer. Maybe this much longer, roughly. I should have brought the little piece. So I chopped that off. This was originally a P-lip, but the P was very worn off. The P-lip button area is very worn. And what I usually notice with these pipes, they have normal size buttons, not these giant buttons that I cut on here in Rebuild with CA glue and carbon. I noticed with these normal size button pipes, when I clench with my overbite type clench that I like to do, where I rest the top portion of the button on the back of my teeth, they clench more like this. And when I rebuild the button, they clench like this a little more. So maybe it's not this dramatic, but it's a couple degrees different. It's kind of important to me, oddly enough. And you know, when you have the ability to change these things, you just in your little shop area, you know, you become very finicky. Like you want things very much perfect. So I noticed that I go through these little like circles. Like I do all the things I want to do. I polish it and I get this finished product and I'm clenching it, and I've been clenching it before, you know, because I'm testing it as I go. I realized, you know, I don't know, I don't like the angle. Like today, the angle is like this, and it felt like it was touching my lip too much. So as I was clenching, it's kind of pushing on my lip. I don't want it pushing on my lip at all. It's partly why I like these very narrow, it's very narrow bite zones, because the wider bite zones, they pull my lip on the side. It's usually where I clench, is very much on the side of my mouth. But also pulling down on the front of my lip with these bent pipes, like a full bend, is very annoying to me. It's partly why when this was longer, I bent it so it's actually a straight bite zone and also lip interaction, and then after that a very aggressive curve after that. So that way it looks almost like one of those German hunting knives, or an H-Wibe aluminum pipe where I think it's steel, yeah, steel tubing and then aluminum. I guess it's a humidome, kind of similar to Falcon pipes. What I like about Coniston cut plug, it's very strong. So if I'm talking or something, I can light it, can let the nicotine kind of dissipate, then relight it again with no problem, no horrible flavor. It's just astonishing when it moved from cigars to pipe tobacco. Because of course with cigars, if you let it extinguish for too long, you get kind of a weird taste you don't really like usually. That's what I would experience, at least. Wouldn't make it horrible, but would make it maybe a less enjoyable experience. So of course I put this new button on it, rebuilt this very large button, and I've noticed that recently I think I've been putting too much depth in the button. And it's very strange, like when you reinvent the wheel, I think you start to kind of understand why people design things a certain way. I find myself to be kind of a traditionalist. There's a tradition of P-lips, let's just call it. You know, P-lip, a patent lip is relatively new, right? In a sense. It's not as old as meerschaum. But it stayed around. People still like it. So of course there's probably aspects of a P-lip that are actually not conducive to people, you know, using, like a lot of people don't like them, right? But still, they still exist, right? So there's certain aspects of the P-lip design that I don't think work well for me. But then as I smoke my one P-lip pipe every once in a while, I start to notice. With the P-lip, the button underneath here is kind of cut out in this concave way. So the bottom part of the button is cut out concave, top part of the button is convex. So top part is rounded out, and then the bottom part is cut out like this. And then of course the drilling is done at the top angle, and then it goes in. Obviously you can look at a diagram, check it out. But kind of, I guess, simple to understand why. It's simple to understand why they put that little convex part, I think, or the concave part on the bottom part of the button, and why it's not top and bottom, you know, looking from this angle, why it's not symmetrical. And I think it's because your tongue interacts with here. Like with this pipe, my tongue touches here. So if I have it clenched like this, my tongue does rest on here, which I'm okay with, I kind of like. But if you have it cut out, if you have it concave cut out like how P-lips are, then it doesn't really rest on there at all. It's almost like a clear shot. You can still touches my tongue in the end. It's almost like it's out of the way because it's not really necessary. It's almost like that portion of the button, let's just call the button this very end line portion, and the rest of it is like a rounded unnecessary piece in a sense, because I could always shave this button down even thinner. I always kind of keep it chunky like this. I think I just like the look of it. It looks like a strange mushroom. Haha. But it makes me wonder, maybe someday I'll find that P-lip design is much better, and I'll prefer it, and I'll actually just cut out a concave section of the bottom portion of all of my buttons for my little customized pipes. And it's strange, it's obviously very addicting to do this to all my pipes. And I guess it unfortunately means it's probably going to be harder to sell these things in the future. Then again, I could always just very quickly, very easily just sand it down to a normal button. And I can probably figure out a way to cut out the slot in an okay way. Then it just looks like a repaired button. People will probably like it maybe better than an original button, not really sure. And of course this thing that I just never mentioned, sterling silver ring, came from my little meerschaum experiment. This thing doesn't fit my finger correctly. Kind of wanted a pinky finger ring. It's too big. But it was a perfect diameter for these meerschaum replacement tenons, or sorry, meerschaum replacement mouthpieces. I could just slip it right over it and cover the little gap between the meerschaum stummel and the mouthpiece, because, you know, it seems like meerschaums tend to be a little bit, it's like wonky. It's not always like perfectly drilled, it seems, in that area. And just slipped it on here, and I just pushed down pretty hard, heated it up, so it's very snug at the moment. And I feel like I'm testing it out. It looks a little crazy, like maybe too much unnecessary stuff going on here. But what I don't like about this pipe is that the mouthpiece right here doesn't flare out. I like the design of a lot of these standard system pipes where they flare out a little more, and then they go into the saddle portion of the stem. But with this one, it doesn't have that. But if I put this, you know, attach this ring to it, I feel like it takes my attention away from that. And it looks, I don't know, almost like one of these like R door, or I think I mentioned Ser Jacopo. I don't really know much about these, I don't know, higher end Italian pipes. I feel like I don't really want to know. Because once I start getting into Castellas, you know, I'm just gonna throw away all my money. And even worse, I feel like I wouldn't want to edit the pipe. I would feel like there's some kind of monetary value. Like in the future, I could sell this pipe. So why would I want to sand down and edit this pipe? But then I would never smoke it because it wouldn't be anywhere as comfortable. Like the amount of comfort I get out of clenching these edited pipes, it's just different. It's just amazing to me. I mean, this was way too long, felt like. For a very full bent style pipe that at least I clench in a very full bent way, when it becomes longer than this, like down to here, I feel that I can't move my head down like this very much. Because the way I clench just forces that thing right down underneath my chin. And it's like having a thing constantly under your chin that you don't want to smash. It's also kind of strange having the smoke just rise right up into my face the whole time. So I think just, I don't know, it's almost like, it just makes the experience so much better. And if I could have just a range of just these old Dunhills and Castells, etc., these like great, amazing pipes, if I just had like 20 of them, I feel like I would trade that experience away for just having like 3 of these very highly customized pipes. I guess it's like tailoring. You know, some people go and they buy like a suit and it's expensive, but they don't get it tailored. Or you can get it tailored. I guess it just depends on what you're looking for. Oh well, I guess this video will be out pretty soon on my Instagram Reels. As if it's like a TV show, like an episode, you know. Every weekend, my weekend starting Monday, gotta make some fun videos. I guess I'll end on this note. It's just everyone talks about, you know, social media is like bad for you. And I think it's kind of true, you know, there's aspects of it that are not good. But there are obviously aspects of it that are great. There's like the YTPC, you know, the YouTube pipe community, that's great. But I find it interesting. For me, I just have trouble. I mean, this is, maybe let's just call it a personal challenge, not like a problem, like an inherent issue that I can't ever resolve. But I get very caught up in it. I get very caught up in, I'm afraid that if I don't respond to messages or if I don't reply to comments and stuff, like, it just seems kind of mean. I don't know. And so it just seems like a fine line of me just getting too, it's almost like I get too worked up over like the social aspect of it. But in reality, I just feel like I just like making the videos. So I mean, I'll say this like many times on these videos, but I just kind of want a scrapbook almost of things that I've done. And I guess if other people want to watch them, then that's nice too. But you know, I guess maybe, yeah, hopefully it's not that bad that I don't really get involved with the, you know, like the community portion that much. Hopefully it's not bad. I don't know. I guess it's up to everyone's interpretation. And perhaps a mere human being can't have full knowledge of what's right or wrong. But I guess we can try. Okay, bye.